This episode is sponsored by 1 Minute Calm. Breathe, live, and love the moment that you're in. Everyday Kids Travel, a kids and parents travel review site. Hi, I'm Christina, the creator and founder of Zmoth Entertainment. You can never underestimate your health, wealth, and happiness. I invite you to join this episode and enjoy. Well, welcome everyone. I am Christina, and I want to welcome you to this the premiere episode of Health, Wealth, and Happiness. Yes, you can hear the laughter already from my mother. Interviews to inspire. And as it is Valentine's Day and full of love, this is a perfect day for this premiere to have the love of my mother.
Do love you. Right from the start.
And we'll get to that in just a moment. So welcome to this episode. We are so happy to have you join us today. And welcome, Mom.
I'm here.
So
glad to be here. Happy to be here.
Good. Full of health, wealth, and happiness for today's interview to inspire. And I have chosen you because I find you a very inspirational person.
Thank you.
And, it might take years to get there before a child appreciates their mother. But I absolutely do appreciate you. And thank you for being my very first guest.
You're welcome. Very much.
In all of the interviews, we have words that are important to us, the health, wealth, and happiness. And health, my mother is a pediatrician, retired now, but that is her health word. Can you tell us more about your life as a pediatrician? One of the facts that I pulled up is when you started as a pediatrician, there were only 5% female doctors even, let alone getting it down to a pediatrician.
Well, I was fortunate. I was fortunate to be accepted in Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit in Department of Pediatrics. And I was so happy coming from an unknown medical school. I was so happy. People that trained me came from St. Christopher's Children in Philadelphia and University of Philadelphia, but they were big hospitals in Philadelphia, and our department head was the second hand. It was Dr. Nelson who wrote the original pediatric textbook. He was his right-hand man, Dr. High. He's dead now, but yeah, I was so happy when they accepted me there because I thought it was really a big to me, it was really a big thing to be accepted there and be trained by these people that are, been faculties in big university hospitals in Philadelphia.
So did you know pediatrics was the direction you were going to go?
Not really. Internal medicine, OB, I applied, but one thing that, I was accepted in Henry Ford Hospital as pediatrics. Fine, that's it. That's it. And most probably that's my destiny.
Life in pediatrics.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody today aspiring as a pediatrician after your career, to someone who's walking out of medical school today, and what you have learned from this experience?
You really have to love children because, children are spoiled by their parents. But you really have to love children and be understanding. They're scared when they come into a room with a strange doctor wearing a white coat with a mother, come on. And they're scared.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to love children and be patient. That's very important. And the best friend you have is when grandma comes into the room. Grandma is your best friend. Talk to grandma. That's the best.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. So that's fun. Do you have any stories that you'd like to tell about one of your favorite times as a pediatrician? A particular patient, a particular case, something that you were proud of that happened along the way? Because I know from experience of living in the same household with you, there's the calls in the middle of the night, there's, the emergencies, there's babies who've been left behind, there's the miracles of once the child gets out of the hospital. Is there a story or two that you'd love to share that made a particular impact on you?
Well, when I went into neonatology and saving a 2-pound baby, you go into the delivery room because it's a very premature baby. In those days, you bring the baby into the nursery, and it's just something to like you have in taking care of a 2-pound baby. You have to intubate and all that stuff, and all the IVs and the umbilical cord. That's where you because they hardly had any veins, so you put the IV fluids through the umbilical cord. And watching this baby, eventually survive the first week, the second week, the next month, and then you see these parents on the day, the baby is now 2-3 months old and is thriving, and the parents, when they bring this baby home, they look on the parents' face. That's the most satisfying thing that you really, oh my God, and the parents are so happy to see their baby. They're going to finally bring home their baby that they didn't expect to live.
Yeah. Life in itself is a miracle, but then when you have those nerves and then something like that, I can understand where parents would just be so happy, excited, and thankful for the work that you've done for them.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you a story. I remember I was walking in the mall, and here comes this father and his wife and little boy. And the father said, "Do you remember him?" And I look at this kid. I look at the father and I said, "I don't remember him, but I remember you." He said, "You're talking of him. He was a premature baby." I said, "Oh, okay. Now I know. I remember now." But the father was so proud of, his son surviving. Another episode where we used to have invite all the children that in the premature babies that we have taken care of. And there was one father that he wouldn't even look at his baby boy because he was afraid the baby would die. So it took him about a week before he went into the nursery to really touch the baby. And then when we had our, reunion, this boy was about 3 years old. He was so proud of him. You remember him? The look of that dad was really something to, look at, because he was so happy his son made it.
Now, having had a career in health your entire life, would you change that from your experience?
Oh, no, never. I'd go back again and do the same thing. Yeah. Pediatrics, is fun. If you like children, it's fun. It's, especially when, the outpatient department, when they come in and they're healthy and you examine them and give them their immunizations and they're healthy and they talk to you and they're smiling. That's fun. But some children don't like you to touch them. They're scared. But you just have to have patience with children. Children are fun.
Yeah. What's funny, because I have watched you from a mother as well as a pediatrician and suddenly turn on that charm that even my friends growing up with, like, wow, your mom is just so nice. I'm like, my mom? And it's amazing because as an adult, I also watched her talk to children and just watch that charm turn on, and suddenly the little kids are talking right back to you.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'd rather take care of children than old people. They're cranky.
All right then. Our next descriptive word is immigrant. My mother was born and raised in the Philippines, but is still culturally diverse in the Philippines. She also has Spanish heritage. Tell us about life as an immigrant, life being life being a mix of Spanish and Filipino, as well as when you came here. That's a lot of story there, but please.
Well, life where in the Philippines, it was nice. I mean, my father was a well-known person in our island. He was, he was a sort of a politician, but never really. I mean, later on when our town became a town, he ran for mayor, and of course he had 2 terms mayor. People like but he was involved in politics. The president of the Philippines, the senators, congressmen, they all, they were friendly with my father. So I grew up that way, and my mother always told us to treat people like you want to be treated, and that's how it was. In the Philippines, when you have money, you have people who work for you in the house, like
Maids,
how it is.
cooks.
Housemaid, a cook, a person who washes the laundry maid, But we were told by my mother, you have to learn how to do these things because it's just the way it is.
So later on, you'd end up using that when you came to the United States.
Yeah, of course.
Going from everything being done for you to having to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Did you find that a culture shock? Did you know to expect it?
Well, I know it's not a culture shock. I expected because you see we used to go to see American movies, and we see that people who live in houses, like and how you call it, average American, middle class American don't have housemates or a chauffeur or whatever. So that's that I expected that, but I learned how to cook when I was here in this country. I used to have a cookbook.
And at 20 some years old to drive for the first time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Learn how to drive, and I bought a car that was not a stick shift. What's that other one? Automatic. That's where I learned how to drive. And I used to drive on highways when I was younger, but then as I got older, let the driver, somebody else drive the car.
I know from having been to the Philippines and seeing the difference in the lifestyle, not only in America, but in the Philippines itself. You grew up very fortunate in the circumstances, like you said, when you have even a little bit of money in the Philippines, you have an opportunity to have a better life. Some children have to work versus being able to go to school, let alone continuing on to college and medical school. Unless you've been there into one of those countries, you can see it, but it's much more impactful when you see it firsthand. Did you know as a child that you were more fortunate than others?
Oh, yes. I know that. We have big house, we have household help, but that does not mean we get spoiled. No, we were not spoiled. If you want it, no. If you need it, yes. That's the way it was. Mm-hmm. Toys, I don't remember having toys. We made up our own toys because my mother refused to buy toys for us. So we get in the backyard and play with the leaves, whatever is on the ground, and stones, and seashells when we go to the beach. That's our toys. Yeah, we didn't. The other kids in the neighborhood that we play with have the same. That's what we play. Nobody had a baby doll or whatever. No.
Which is kind of interesting when you think about it. Children can have so many toys, and suddenly they're playing with the cardboard box instead of the toy it came in.
Yeah.
Or they're out in the dirt playing with the dirt and the sticks and the stones and mud puddles. And, I think that's almost one of those worldwide phenomena with children, is the simplicity of play and nature.
When we were little, like before we started school, we used to play in the backyard, and we play with whatever is in the backyard, like stones, leaves, and whatever. And then before you get, eat food, or you are being washed. Your hands, you have to wash your hands with soap and water. Your feet has to be washed because you've been in the backyard. And that's how it was.
Yeah. Was there ever a point where you had a little bit of culture shock with things being different than the Philippines? Because, culturally, the way people interact with each other, families are very different here versus there, the way people raise their children. Still growing up in that Asian household with you as my mother, I know there's still that tiger mom, where it's education. And I'm going to throw in there that my mother was also valedictorian in her high school, and that was a standard I was supposed to live up to. But was there a moment in time where you felt that there was something that you were just really surprised by, that you never heard of or never knew existed?
Young, teenagers. They're in America. They were free to go in and out, and like learn driving at 16 years old. But see, there's plenty of cars here. But in the Philippines, even if you are rich, you have a chauffeur. So you don't go anywhere in the car with the chauffeur.
No joy riding.
You don't have a car of your own unless you buy it. The majority of people when I was growing up in the Philippines don't have much money, So it was, that one. You have to own here in America, in order to go from A to B, you have to have a car, because transportation is not very good, and it's even worse now. Yeah, unless you have a car, you can't go anywhere. Years ago, you could in the bus. You go from A to B, transfer where you want to go to D. Not anymore. You have to have a car.
So one of the things that makes me think of is just exposure in general. Teenagers are in the United States are exposed to a lot more. And even, we can put that even fast forward to today with electronics and the internet.
Or nowadays in the Philippines, they have cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Cell phone. But when I was growing up, we didn't have a phone. We didn't have television. We didn't have radio. In the 50s, you have a transistor. When transistor radio came, we had one transistor radio with the battery. And then later on, when I was in college, I was in medical school, one of my brothers brought in a console TV into the house that was black and white, and you still can have a radio if you want, if you can afford it. Some of my, not all of my classmates, even in medical school, didn't have radio because we were more into studying. You have to study, that's it. Then when television, like in the 60s, television became like almost a 24-hour thing in Cebu, but in Manila it was already 24-hour in the 60s. But television was introduced in Cebu in early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was 5 p.m. to midnight. And then they decided, okay, let's, have a 24-hour. I think it increased from like 3 p.m. to 12 midnight. And then later on, it became 24 hours, whatever, however. Most of the people are sleeping anyway.
So much has changed over time, and even in your lifetime, from the technology, and just to see those things from your growing up to now and going back and seeing the changes, even I find fascinating in the time that I've been able to go and visit our family there or friends as well. What would you say to someone who is thinking, who's in the Philippines, who would like to go to another country? What advice would you have to give them?
Well, most of I have to say is, like you're from the Philippines, be proud to be a Filipino, okay? And don't try to pretend that you are somebody else. I got this advice from Philadelphia, who rented an apartment close by the house, and because we had my sister-in-law had a small store, and he would pass by there and buy, I think, soft drinks or something, and we got to talking. And the best advice he ever told me: be yourself. Don't pretend to be anybody else. You're going to America, be yourself. People will see through you if you pretend. So I took that advice and said, okay, yeah, he's right. Come to America, be yourself.
That's great advice, actually, for anybody at any age.
Yeah. Don't pretend. No, don't pretend. Just be yourself.
And for someone who's already arrived here and now they're trying to make their way, do you have any advice for someone who's just become an immigrant?
Well, work hard. Work hard. I mean, take a job if you can, get a job. It doesn't matter as long as it's an honest job. Take it.
Mm-hmm.
You can always move into something else, I have seen ladies who used to mop the floors, but then they would go to school and end up, stop mopping the floor, and now I'm a nurse. I used to mop the floor. Now I'm a nurse. So there's always in US. There's always and you can always advance yourself if you work hard. Have that ambition.
So that's the sage advice. Work hard.
Work hard. You'll be there. You'll eventually get there. Yeah, work hard. You can relax when you're retired.
And everybody's rolling for that one. Let's get to retirement quick. And a game of life. Let's go.
Yeah.
There it is. The call on the horn. So, I've been asked, health, wealth, and happiness. My question about health. I mean, wealth. Well, they sound the same. They kind of rhyme. Wealth to me is being able to cruise as often as I want to, and I do. I counted 5 times just this year, and it's February. What? Oh, but that's the opportunity, just like today here in Jamaica. They say you got to find someone with a trust fund. You know what I say? You just got to trust the funds. Meet the someone and trust the funds. No, I'm being serious here. Always trust your funds and treat yourself to funds. So, our happiness word that you have chosen is mother. Motherhood is happiness to you. So, tell us a little bit about that. I'm leaving that in.
Well, it's nice to be a mother. I mean, you see your children grow up and you see them, finish whatever ambition they have, and they show, your respect and love. And that's what it is all about, That's what, and the mother is, you're proud of your children, because, and then they show their love to you, respect and love the mother. And that's very important. And yeah, don't interfere.
That's a big
once they're of age, don't interfere. You can advise, but they will take it or leave it. That's it.
Don't interfere at 18, at 22, 24, 25, 30. Where's the don't interfere?
Yeah. If they come to you for advice, you give them an advice, and you either listen or they don't. That's it. It's not your life anymore.
So I'll do the twofold. It's like, do you want the good news or the bad news? So what do you think was a trying point in motherhood for you? And then you look at the entire span till today, a trying point for you, and to learn something from that.
Oh, the teenage years. Teenage years.
Somehow that seems like a surprise when she says that.
Do you think they know everything? Yeah, I'm 15, I'm 16, I know everything. Little do they know. No, you don't know anything yet.
Exactly. And then one day you wake up and you go, I was that teenager? Oh my gosh. And do you have a favorite part of motherhood that has occurred over the span?
Favorite part was holding the baby first time. And then also knowing that my children are happy and they have attained whatever they have attained, and they're happy.
And there were times you weren't sure that would happen.
Yeah. It does.
The sleepless nights. My mother still calls me at 2 a.m. if I'm visiting her and I'm hanging out with friends, or just across the street visiting neighbor friends, to make sure that I get home safely when I have to walk 100 feet from door to door. That is my mother, and that's one of the things I absolutely adore about her. It might drive me crazy sometimes, but it gives me a laugh now that I'm an adult.
Well, being a mother, you never stop worrying. Even when they're all grown up and have children, you still worry. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's just worry. And somebody says, oh, stop worrying. No, okay, I'll stop worrying. But deep inside, you still worry. Really worry.
Well, that comes with day one, right?
Yeah, you worry about it. Like, the worst part is, what I worry about is like a phone call, from the police. That is the worst thing. That's the worst worry that would ever happen to any mother. It doesn't matter what phone call it is, but it's coming from the police. That is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad news. Yeah.
So is there any advice, and you have grown children now, that to another mother who might be struggling with the relationships with their child, or struggling still with some of the guilt that they felt in not being able to do the things for their child? There's lots of things that, can come from motherhood. But is there any advice that you would give to another mother who has adult children that is going through some struggle?
Oh, an adult child who is going through some struggle, you have to talk to them. Try to find out what's going on. And, it's their life, not yours. So all you have to do is, if they want to talk to you, and you just listen. And just listen. And if they ask for an advice, you give them an advice. But don't dictate. And say, you do this, you do that. No. Just listen, and then you give an advice. But think. Think 1,000 times what you're going, when you open your mouth, what you're going to say. You don't just, the first thing that gets into your head. No, you think, there's plenty of time. You're having a conversation. There's plenty of time, and you think and say, if I say that, would it make it worse? Or if I see this, it might help. And if you have nothing else to say, keep your mouth shut.
And there's the sage advice on this one. Just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, they're not going to listen to you anyway. They'll do what they want.
Do you have someone in your life who was a female role model to you, whether it's family, celebrity, political figure? Do you have somebody that stood out that you said, wow, that's an amazing woman?
My mother. My mother was a strong woman. She was born poor. She became a school teacher. And when she married my father, it was a 50-50 proposition. But sometimes I think she got the upper hand sometimes, like my father had no idea that I think he was being led by the nose sometimes. But she was a strong woman. Of course, you would love my mother. She was a very strong woman, and she just makes a decision sometimes without asking my father, and my father just go along with it. Yeah, she helped my father, and somebody told her, she had a mole up here, and read her palm, and she was a stranger. They were in a boat going from Manila to Samar, or Samar, anyway. He said he was a foreigner, talked to her in English, and she said, lady, that's your good luck charm. Don't you ever let anybody remove it. Mm-hmm. And he said, that without you are your husband's good luck. He said, without you, he will not be where he is now. Yep. Yeah, and I believe that, Yeah, being born poor, and she was, she worked hard and became a school teacher, but then she only taught for 4 years, and then she married my father, and my father said, no wife of mine is going to work outside the house.
This is also 1930s, 20s, 30s.
1920s. But, having rice fields and all that stuff, my mother would go to, like harvest season, she'll be there. So that she would spend, wherever there's a lot, the rice fields are, like big area. She would go there, harvest season. And she'd go there on a Monday and stay there until Friday night, because people that in this particular area, they were cheating. So if she's there, nobody would cheat. She is able to, yeah. See, later on, I remember, this was before the war, Second World War. But later on, in the 40s, after the war, my father hired an overseer to, for these properties. He had 2 overseers. And so my mother didn't have to go to those places anymore. But at that time, she was still young. She was able to go. And later on, we had, 2 overseers for the properties. And they always report to my father, I think at least once a week. Yeah, because before that, I think, before the war, my father would go look. I mean, he was young then, and so he would just inspect his properties, his coconut plantations, especially the coconut plantation. Mm-hmm. People would steal coconuts, yeah. Yeah, and then they would start making copra without permission, because once they make the copra, like they sell it, then they get, I don't know how much percentage, but after selling it, they get, and then they still have the use for the coconut. Mm-hmm. They still use it. My father don't count how many coconuts are there, it's just, and then, like they use the shell as fuel, including the husk is fuel for making copra.
It's very fascinating, as well as, again, being such a different culture to the everyday there versus the everyday here. But these are stories for me that I have heard my entire life. And one of the things my mother has always done is treat our relatives, even though they're on the exact opposite side of the world, right over here, as if they were in the next town over. They were, a city block away. And that's been a very unique perspective and interesting, that they're on the other city block, just that way. And it's really, really how I felt. She did make a comment also. I want to mention that I never knew my Lola. She had passed before I was born, and you were 23.
23. Yeah, she was a very strict woman, but she was very kind. Oh, she was very kind. Like somebody say, okay, here, you want some food? Here, eat. Yeah. And I remember we had one of our maid servant. She left. She was living with this guy. And my mother said, get married. Who found out the guy was already married, so you cannot get married. There's no divorce in the Philippines. So she stayed with him. And then he left her. She had a baby. She came into the house one day, and oh my God, she was skinny. And the baby was skinny. My mother said, come here, eat. And eat and feed the baby. And my mother said, just stay here. And she started, like we have some old clothes. My mother got the sewing machine and just made clothes for her. Yeah. And she would come at least every few days. And the other servants said, she must be hungry. That's why she's here. She didn't say that, but that was true. And then my mother said, you want to go home to your family? He said, I'll pay for the transportation on the boat going to Samar. And she agreed. Well then, so one of the servants said, okay, I'll bring you to the pier and you get in the boat. We got to the pier, she changed her mind. She decided, no, I'm not going. So she said, well, what can I do? I can't push her in there. And so she came in there. And I don't know whatever happened to her.
The kind giving nature of the role model, the one who's strict and pushes for the better things in life, the education, being a teacher. I can understand where that can be such a role model for you, and then push down, onto your own children as well.
Oh, yes. Study, study, study. That's what we did. Except on Saturdays. That's when we were told to sweep the floor, dust the furnitures. Because my mother said, if you don't know how to clean a house, how are you, and you have servants, you're rich, how are you going to tell your servant to clean the house the way you want it done? You don't rely on somebody's thinking that's clean, but it isn't. To your standard, it isn't. So, yep, we have to do it.
So it comes back to that circle of
Yeah.
the health, wealth, and happiness. Here we go. Yeah. You're going to go someplace else and be something. And yes, learn, don't be afraid of. If you could give the gift of health, wealth, or happiness to one person, who would it be and why?
I'd give it to you.
She's just saying it because she's my mother. Forget my siblings.
I'd give it to you.
Now, if they weren't here, would you give it to them too?
Well, Ina is happy. And Jessie is.
So she'd give happiness to her children.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I try my best. You don't expect whatever it is. You're like, you give something to somebody, or you don't expect that person. Some people are not, I think, expect more.
Mm-hmm.
But you have given them your all, but they expect more. And there's nothing you can do about it.
So we give our happiness to you in return. And our love, because it's Valentine's Day.
I'm happy. I mean, I'm proud of my children. I really do. If I have to start it all over again, I might few changes here and there, but hey, I'm proud of all of you.
So there we have it. Here's our interview with my mother. I want to thank you for joining us today on this special premiere episode of Health, Wealth, and Happiness Interviews to Inspire. I hope her stories have inspired you today, and we're here to inspire. So please leave your comments, your questions in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. And again, thank you for joining me today. And this will not be the last time, will it?
Thank you.
Well,
maybe next time, this is like a dress rehearsal. Maybe next time it will be much better.
It's just the first interview, my friends. All right, and thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.